Good morning and welcome to the second installment of the Global Security Seminars organized by the Near East Institute. Today we'll be exploring a topic that has never been more urgent, and that is, of course, the critical energy infrastructure during wartime and what the ongoing invasion of Ukraine and the ongoing aggression of Russia toward Ukraine can teach us about resilience, about risk, and the future of energy security in Europe. Almost from the outset, you'll remember Ukraine's energy sector has been under relentless attack. We've seen drones, Russian missiles, and sabotage that have systematically hit power plants, gas facilities, and nuclear substations, aiming not to just degrade the Ukrainian economy, but also to break civilian morale and disrupt essential humanitarian services. I mean, only in September, only very recently, we saw Russia launching an attack led by hundreds of drones in a massive strike that severely damaged the Tripliska thermal power plant. This was a facility that had only been recently rebuilt after an earlier attack. But as I mentioned, this threat isn't just limited to Ukraine. We know that in the Baltics and in the North Sea region, for example, we are particularly vulnerable, and the analysts there warn of a sabotage of subsea cables and undersea gas pipelines, infrastructure that power wind farms and links to European grids. And this appears to be the broader Russian strategy in other theaters and domains as well, to disrupt and to undermine European unity through these unconventional means. The lessons are clear. We need to be defending energy infrastructure, especially in those places that are the most vulnerable. And this appears not only a technical challenge, it's also a geostrategic priority, or so it should be. We need to rethink how we can protect power grids, how supply can be diversified, and also resilience could be built in the face of this hybrid and asymmetrical threats. Now, in order to discuss all these issues and lessons from Ukraine, we are joined by a distinguished guest this morning. We have with us here this morning Oksana Ishchuk from the Center for Global Strategies 21 in Kyiv. Oksana Ishchuk is the executive director of the Center for Global Studies Strategy 21, where she also serves as an analyst specializing in international relations and in energy policy. She has an impeccable CV in this sense, and I would like to share this with you. So Oksana has more than a decade of professional experience in the fields of energy security, foreign policy, and European integration. Her research focuses on the energy sector of Ukraine, European and global energy markets. Through her analytical work at Strategy 21, Oksana has contributed to numerous reports and policy papers on Ukraine's energy cooperation with the European Union, regional energy transitions, and the geopolitical implications of energy interdependence. Ms. Ishchuk is a graduate of Taras Shevchenko National University of Kyiv, and her recent publications include Russian Tactics Targeting Critical Energy Infrastructure that was prepared and commissioned for NATO in 2024. And this was a co-authored work which examines the evolving dynamics of Ukraine's energy landscape. Oksana regularly provides expert commentary for international conferences and media outlets offering in-depth analysis of how energy policy shapes Ukraine's foreign relations and security environment. So without any further ado, Oksana, welcome to the show.
Hello, good morning to everybody. Mustafa, thank you for inviting me, for having me here, and thank you, of course, for such a great introductory speech and for presenting me to the audience. First of all, let me express my gratitude for the Near East Institute for inviting, and of course for the Cyprus condemning the Russian aggression and for the support of Cyprus to human, military, and political support to Ukraine. So the topic of my speech today is securing Europe, securing Ukraine, and Ukrainian lessons to critical energy infrastructure protection. It's very important topic because due to Russian aggression in Ukraine, Ukraine is the only country in the world who has such a great experience how to protect its critical energy infrastructure. And we have some experience as analytical center in this, as think tank, as at the request of a NATO Ukraine platform for countering hybrid threats. We performed analysis devoted to Russian tactics and strategy in this sphere. So I'm here to share some part of this experience with you. The Russian pattern of conducting conventional war and kinetic war involves the destruction of energy infrastructure, and there are several patterns how Russians act. First of all, it's the seizure of nuclear facilities followed by nuclear blackmail. Then the damage of the fuel infrastructure, the depot. Then damage of generating capacities of the power grid, then damage to transformer substations, high voltage transformer stations of the United Power System of Ukraine, damage to compressor stations of the gas transmission system and gas extraction facilities. So how did the tactics of targeting critical infrastructure evaluated on the fourth year of war? First of all, it should be mentioned that on the fourth year of war, Russians didn't succeed to maintain its main goal. Their main goal is fragmentation of the United Power System of Ukraine on Energy Island. And the only one day when they managed to make entire blackout of energy system of Ukraine was 23rd of November 2022, and it lasted only several hours. But then the control by the Ukrenergo, its transmission system operator, was restored, and the main goal of Russians were not made possible. So Russians has three main goals now. First, it's provoke mass social protest in Ukraine due to the lack of electricity and heat in the cold winter. They try to make mass protest of people and to direct this protest in the anti-war direction. It means that the people will ask the government to search for compromise with the Russians, and in fact it will mean capitulation. The second goal of Russians is to make, as I have already said, to make fragmentation of the united energy system of Ukraine on the regional energy island. This goal was not done. And the third goal is desynchronization of Ukrainian power system from the NSOE. It means the network of transmission system operators of electricity in Europe. In order Ukraine have no possibility to export and import electricity from the European Union. Also, the Ukrainian energy system retains its functionality. A lot of thermal power plant and hydropower power plant were destroyed, damaged, but the main that should be understandable that is the 30% of generation capacity in Ukraine is covered by the nuclear power plants, nuclear generation. And here another threat is that from the last year, from 2024, Russians try to also to make nuclear attack on Ukraine using non-nuclear means. What do I mean? On August 26, 2024, there was first strike by Russians on the substations which are responsible for transmitting electricity generated by the nuclear power plants to the energy system of Ukraine. And when these attacks on substations were done, there was emergency shutdown of nuclear power plants, and the threat of nuclear accident using non-nuclear means were very high. In October 2025, Russians continued these attacks on the substations of nuclear power plant, and even International Atomic Energy Agency confirmed the damage to substation and ensured the safe functioning of the Ukrainian nuclear power plants as a result of Russian strikes. This is yet not only a threat for Ukraine, this is the threat for all European continent, and this is another example how Russians threaten nuclear safety of the whole European continent. Of course, such strikes could not be done without the consulting of specialists of Rosatom. So the sanctions on not only on oil and gas of Russians in Europe, but also on nuclear entities such as Rosatom, the sanctions should be imposed. So how the tactics of Russians evaluated through the year? If in the first year of war, in the first heating season, Russians used 400 Shahid drones for entire season and for whole the territory of Ukraine. This year, this number of 400 drones, they could use only for one night and for one region. For example, there was an attack on the 6th August of this year on the gas compressor station Orlivka, which is situated in the western of Ukraine and responsible for transmitting gas from Trans-Balkan pipeline. So over the night, there was 48 drone attacks only on these critical energy infrastructure objects. 48 drones only for one object. So you can see that if in the first year of war there was 400 drones for several months, now we could have hundreds of drones over the night. Illustrative example is the night of October 30, 2025, half a month earlier, when the enemy launched 705 weapons. In general, it was 52 air, land, and sea-based missiles, including Kinjal air ballistic missiles, Iskander-M ballistic missiles, 3 types of cruise and aviation missiles, as well as 654 3 drones of various types, only through the night. And if at the first year of war they tried to make the entire blackout of energy system of Ukraine, now Russians try to make local blackouts of regions. And this tactics unfortunately is successful, as we had local blackouts in Sumy region, in Odessa region, in Chernihiv region. And of course, we try to restore our system, but nevertheless, they managed to do these tactics of a lot of cuts. So what conclusions should be done from the experience of Ukraine? And what recommendations for the European partners should be done? First, it's the critical energy infrastructure in Europe is vulnerable for both kinetic and hybrid damage and sabotage actions. Due to drone incursions, some of European airports have already forced to temporarily close, and they have some losses. For example, we know that 1 minute of disruption of airport costs approximately $100,000 per 1 minute of disruption of airport. So European Union already has financial losses due to Russian hybrid attacks with drones. And another hybrid attacks are in place while the EU is reflecting on whether to act or not to act, or whether to blame Russians or not to blame. Russia's using GPS jamming and spoofing and affecting large percentage of commercial flights. The repairs of subsea cables in Black Sea also cost a lot. For example, last year on 25th of December, there was attack on East Link electricity cable in Black Sea, and the owners of this cable incurred losses of 60 million euro. So the quick frequency of such hybrid and not hybrid, even kinetic attacks on the territory of European Union, it will only continue, and the frequency will only increase. And it is necessary, what is our recommendation? That it is necessary to not to wait, not to reflect, but already to do and to develop a multi-layer, multinational defense system in European Union, to develop electronic warfare means to form preformed mobile fire groups to effectively counteract to such hybrid attacks. Another lesson from Ukraine is that energy infrastructure doesn't have in Europe doesn't have significant capacity reserves. If to say about Ukraine, its energy infrastructure system was built in the Soviet period, and the consumption of the industry, consumption of the population was 3 times higher than it is now. Also, the capacity of high voltage transformators built in Ukraine at that time is twofold bigger than we need now. So we entered in the beginning of the war with a huge deficit of energy infrastructure facilities, and this is the key secret of our resilience. Because for example, last week I have consultation with the Danish Energy Agency, and they said that they have zero deficit. It means their consumption is covered by generation, and there is no deficit in the system. Why? Because the private companies they are reluctant to maintain excessive capacities of energy system, and that's why it is balanced consumption covered with generation and no deficit. So additional capacities are required under consequences of war and hostilities in order to have some resilience of the system. Third lesson is that critically important is to have the stockpiles of spare parts. And Ukraine had such stockpiles at the beginning of war. Another example of good experience is that military civilian cooperation should be in place. It is important for the rapid restoration of energy supply for the civilian sectors, and after the some capacities are damaged, there should be immediate civilian military cooperation. Why? Because in Ukraine, a lot of repairs teams they act from the civilian sector, even having no contracts for such works. It means that it is necessary to work and develop the mechanism of such military-civilian cooperation and public-private partnership in wartime. Fifth lesson is for the maritime states, and it means that it is very important to prevent maritime blockade of the coast and the damage to maritime infrastructure. Because, for example, from occupation of Crimea on 2014, there was gas drilling platforms situated in the Black Sea, which were occupied after the occupation of Crimea, and there was installed sonars and special equipment for reconnaissance by Russians, and it means that not only underwater infrastructure, but also infrastructure for extraction gas and oil in sea should be protected. And it is important to maintain the stability of such objects. And to do this, it is necessary to create a reliable defense system, coastal anti-ship complexes, maritime attack drones, air defense, and mine barriers to develop anti-sabotage defense. And of course, it is necessary to transmit the war, the hostilities on the enemy's land to attack the infrastructure of the enemy in strategic depths, and it is necessary for this to have a complex of intelligence and special measures that should be carried out in advance on the national level before the hostility starts. So you should have the list of critical energy infrastructure of your enemy in order to act in preventive mode. What is another Ukrainian very important lessons this is, of course, the building of distributed waterproof generation capacities based on the renewables. It means that it should be not it should be objects that should be small, covered, and that should be able to generate some energy for the system, and it will be hard for the enemy to attack such objects. Another example of experience of Ukraine is that it is important to simulate scenarios of possible actions of the enemy to damage energy networks and determine the vulnerabilities of your own system, to make a list of critical energy infrastructure objects that should be protected in first step and second step in third step. And to based on this, it is important to organize and conduct regular command and staff exercises with the involvement of network operator companies, with civil authorities, and with armored forces. And third, very important lesson, it's of course that every state should have its own capacity to damage the infrastructure of aggressor. If to say about Ukraine, if for the first year of war we have no possibility to make attacks on the Russian energy infrastructure, on the fourth year of war we have possibility to attack in the depths of 2,000 kilometers in the depths of enemy's territory, and it has its own limited but still its own effect. So what is important? It is important that protecting and supporting Ukraine by our European partners, it means not only support for Ukraine itself, it means the peace time for Europe. Everybody know that now in Europe starts the processes of rearmament till 2030s, and Europe is rearming itself to be able to protect itself after 2030s, but still these hostilities should start on the territory of Ukraine early of this period. And you now experience hybrid attacks on your territory, and protecting Ukraine as a shield of enemy from the east, it means protecting also the peacetime in Europe. Thank you for your attention, and please, I'm ready to answer your questions.
Yes, thank you so much, Oksana, for that fascinating overview of the situation in Ukraine and what Europe should be doing and what sort of lessons they should be taking from Ukraine. I have a few questions, and I'm sure our audience will also like to join the discussion. So those of you watching us on YouTube or on Facebook, if you have any questions, feel free, or comments, feel free to share those with us as well in the comments section. Now, Oksana, well, the first question I want to ask is in relation to how the Ukrainians viewed energy security before the Russian aggression. But I also want to point to the 2014 annexation of Crimea this wasn't the first time the Russians attacked Ukraine. So, were there any lessons from 2014 that the authorities in Ukraine tried to put in place, or was it the recent aggression now that has been ongoing for the past better 4 years that really caused a change in attitudes and a shift in perceptions toward energy security?
Of course, answering this question, we should say that there was huge evaluation of entire energy system of Ukraine since 2014. Every evaluation in energy system of Ukraine starts exactly in 2014. Why? Because after annexation of Crimea, after annexation of Donbass, everybody realized that Russia is a real enemy, and that it has not only some purposes of economic blockade, but also the purposes to occupy the entire territory of Ukraine. So in 2014, there started processes. First, that should be mentioned that in a year after annexation of Crimea in 2015, Ukraine stopped importing Russian gas. So if before this year every gas that we imported was imported from Russia, then we started to import it from the spot markets of European Union, from neighboring countries like Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, and some gas from Romania. It's the first. The second is that the processes of synchronization of electricity system of Ukraine, of United Power System of Ukraine with European countries started. Of course, there was a lot of years that of work needed for this, but when the full-scale invasion started in 2020, Ukraine was ready to desynchronize with Russian energy system. It was made in several days just before full-scale invasion in February 2022. But the work which was done, it was done in years before, exactly after the 2014s. So answering your questions, all energy system of Ukraine was rebuilt after the occupation of Crimea and synchronized with European Union, and now we can say that that energy sector of Ukraine, it's an entire part of energy market of European Union, and it is fully desynchronized from the energy sector of aggressor.
Fantastic, thank you. And before we move on to the European dimension of it all, the second question, which I think would be good to tackle in a critical way as well, would be what is lacking, what more needs to be done in Ukraine, of course. And you are a foremost expert on this, and this doesn't in any way undermine what has been done, and you are right in pointing that a lot has been done all the way back from 2014. Certain measures were put in place. The way Ukraine viewed its energy security changed drastically, and changed with a view to defend itself against a clear aggressor, in this case Russia. But what more needs doing at the moment? If you were to say what remains still vulnerable?
Answering this question, everybody sees this perfect political storm which Ukraine is entering now, and everybody may be now waiting for me answering this question. This political storm showed two sides of one problem. One side is it's still exposing high corruption in energy sector. But another positive side of this medal is that anti-corruption institutions it worked perfectly, and it was the institutions that were built on the request of European Union for the support of Ukraine in its Euro-Atlantic integration. This anti-corruption system it works perfectly now, and it shows the such huge corruption scams in Ukraine. It's of course it's the biggest corruption scandal in Ukrainian history, and it will have. It should have the consequences. First of all, there should be revised the supervisory boards of big entities responsible for energy, such Energoatom, Ukrenergo, Naftogaz of Ukraine. It should be done in the first step, and already yesterday our government our parliament make a decision to have revise the constitution of supervisory boards of biggest Ukrainian energy entities. Another that should be done, of course, that the person in the government responsible for such huge corruption should be dismissed, and they have already been dismissed, but also there should be another step of court work. I mean that the guilty should be blamed, and the justice and court should show its efficiency. Not only anti-corruption agencies, but also this is the time for the court to show how the justice work in Ukraine. Another answer on your question will be, of course, that there are a lot of work to be done to protect critical energy infrastructure, because if to say about the objects of transmission system operator of Ukrenergo, they have built more than 74 protective buildings on its critical energy infrastructure. While the such objects on the Energoatom were not built because of this corruption scandal, corruption scams. The guilty should be blamed, and the critical energy infrastructure should be protected. And the work should be done to protect the objects of Energoatom. And another that should be done, it's of course maybe after the end of the war, because now we have the martial law, which stop some reforming of Ukrainian energy sector. What I mean? With the martial law, we have regular prices for electricity and for gas. The reforming process of liberalization of energy market of Ukraine was stopped. And this path to liberalization of energy market should be performed after the end of the war. Because now it is not possible to do it when the martial law is in place.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad in a way that you've highlighted the discussions that are taking place now in relation to corruption, right? And it's something that needs tackling. not only for the sake of the country in going forward toward better governance, but also, as you rightly pointed out, to tackle the challenge that the country is facing right now. And you mentioned earlier on in your talk as well that Russians are trying to create a certain public outcry, or at least they are playing at that. And so I wonder, although this is slightly off topic, but we will come back to the topic of energy security in Europe. But before that, the corruption discuss or the debate around corruption, is this something that Russia is also trying to chip away at the moment, or to somehow invoke to create unrest in the country?
Of course, you know that this is a perfect storm, and I think this was also used by security services of Russia. And not only I think so, because in this corruption scandal was involved the Andriy Derkach. It is now it is a FSB agent, and it is the now the member of the Gosduma of Russia, of the Parliament of Russia. So his office in Kiev was used as office for laundering some financial resources in this scandal. So it is quite understandable that Russian efforts were also involved in all this scandal, and besides, the corruption is the traditional method of Russian special services used not only in Ukraine but also in European Union. For example, you remember Gerhard Schröder, a former chancellor of Germany, who, after leaving his post, were appointed as one of top managers of Gazprom. So corruption is traditional mechanism of Russian special services. Of course, the guilty in Ukraine should be punished, but still we have seen the traces also of Russian operations in all this history with laundering money in energy sector of Ukraine.
There's one more question on Ukraine before again we moved on to talk a little bit about the European energy security. I think it's a question which ties what you've been saying really well as well. So perhaps if you could reflect on it briefly. It's a question from, I believe, one of our students here at NEU. And she says, how has Ukraine's wartime governance affected its democratic institutions and its civil liberties?
Mm-hmm. No, to answer this question, we should understand that based on the constitution of Ukraine, there should be no elections in Ukraine. It means that the president of Ukraine should be elected, and the possibility of elections in Ukraine will open only after the end of the war. It means also that the government now, it is appointed not by the parliament as it should be, but in the hand regime by the president. It's not correct, and it should be fixed, this problem. It's the one case. Another case is that it is not possible to change the parliament now, because it is not possible to make elections in democratic way, and it is not possible to make elections of the president. And all these impossibilities of impossibilities to make the democratic elections now in the wartime. It affects the state machine because, for example, the parliament of Ukraine, it's the majority of it now, it constitutes the Sluga Narodu party, which is pro-presidential and which also is in some case controlled by the president. So it's a problem, and any possibility to fix it will be only after the end of the war, because now it is not possible to conduct democratic elections. It is not possible to protect the rights of all authors in the front line, for example, to make the transparent process of elections for our servicemen who are now fighting. It is not possible to invite the international missions responsible for observing elections. So these processes should be fixed after the end of the war, and it's the problem.
Thank you, Oksana. Now, the European dimension. You've highlighted a number of important lessons that the Europeans should be heeding in ensuring energy security and building resilience against future possible attacks on their critical energy infrastructure. The question, the million-dollar question, of course, is to what extent have these been lessons been taken seriously or put into practice? And I will tie this in with another question from our audience. This time it's our PhD candidate here at NEU, and also our graduate teaching and research assistant, Mr. Abdullah Al-Khatiri. He says, is shifting away from Russian gas toward alternative suppliers an effective path to achieving energy security? And I think he is talking about the Europeans, because this has been their focus, right? And can Europe rely on renewable energy to move towards self-sufficiency? Again, another hot button topic. So let's reduce dependency on Russia, move on to green energy, and all will be fine. What do you make of that?
So answering the question of Mr. Abdullah Al-Khatiri, sorry for spelling. So to answer this question, we should understand that energy balance of different countries of European Union is quite different. I mean, for example, if to see the example of Poland, there is still a high percentage of coal in the energy consumption. If to say about the Scandinavian countries, there are a lot of wind energy in their energy balance, and there are a lot of countries like Germany, for example, where the gas is the main source for their energy balance. So first, it is quite different energy balances, and shifting from Russian gas, it means different consequences for every country, but still the Russian gas, it is it has now possibility to be in Europe. It should be changed to American LNG, for example. And if to say the possibilities for this, in September of this year, Chris Wright, the Ministry of Energy of US, visiting Poland. He clearly stated that US have all possibilities to change Russian gas in Europe. So they have new facilities coming on board in future years to squeeze Russian gas from European market. And now 50% of all gas consumption in Europe, in European Union, it is covered by the US, and they have possibilities to even to increase these volumes. It's the first. The second is that speaking about Russian gas in Europe, we should take into account the Qatari export terminals that should be in place in the second half of 2026. If for now Qatar has 77 million tons of LNG per year capacity. In the second half of 2026, they plan to export more than 110 million tons of LNG per year. So in a year we will have the free new volumes on the international market, which should be directed to Europe to replace Russian gas. And now Europe has all possibilities to get rid completely of Russian gas, and we have seen in 19th sanctions package that Europe plans to completely get rid of Russian gas in the perspective of 1st January 2028. For our opinion, even now, all the possibilities to get rid of Russian gas in Europe, it is in place. But answering on the question, it is important to say that it will not be a good scenario to change the gas in energy balance completely to renewables. Why? Because renewables, it is intermittent source of energy. When the sun is shining, there is a lot of solar energy. When there is no sun, there is no sun energy and very low capacities of these solar panels. And speaking about the wind, also energy infrastructure, these wind farms for example, in the Baltic Sea, they are quite vulnerable to threats and to subversions on the cables of electricity cables in the Baltic Sea. And renewables, they are intermittent sources, but the base load of energy, it should be covered with still with nuclear, with gas, with oil, with such stable sources of energy.
Excellent. And in terms of the physical protection of critical energy structures in infrastructures in Europe, you mentioned by means of electrified weaponry, and this is of course a big discussion because at the moment Europe is using inadequate means to fight drones. I mean, it makes no sense, of course, to try and down a drone which costs only a few $1,000s with a missile, right? Which is the go-to measure at the moment. And there is all this talk of developing new technology in relation to drone attacks with these drone walls. And the Europeans, in order to push ahead with this and with other measures, have introduced, of course, the safe package, right? What's your take on that? Do you think that the Europeans are doing enough in that sort of more hard security protective measures? Is this something that is being discussed in Ukraine?
Of course, Ukraine was the first country who proposed to European Union to use its experience in counteracting to Russian hybrid attacks. And of course, European Union, they and NATO countries, they tried, for example, if to say about the example of Poland, when there was more than 20 Shahid-type drones on its territory in September, and we have seen that NATO countries, they act in inappropriate, cost not effective way, trying to target these drones with high-cost F-35, F-16 missiles, and from these jets. This is the matter of several questions. First, that it is better to target these drones not on the territory of European Union. Now we are speaking about Shahid drones, which were on the territory of Poland. Okay, so it's better to target them when they are flying just on the territory of Ukraine, and Ukraine have mobile groups for this, which act in more cost-effective way. For this, it is what should be done for this. The cooperation, interagency cooperation, should be done to form multinational, multi-layer defense. Now, after the accident on the Polish territory in September, there was discussions on the level of NATO how to build such a multinational, multi-layer defense, but except in Ukraine. Polish partner, they said that they can do it in more sophisticated way, using lasers, for example, using non-kinetic weapons, which are under elaboration now. But they do not want to take the example of Ukraine, and they do not want to form multinational defense with Ukraine. For our opinion, it's a mistake because Ukraine has a huge experience how to cooperate in this. And it's better to act when these drones are on the territory of Ukraine, because we are facing this challenge every day. It's the first question. The second question is that the attacks on the airports in European countries with small drones. It's a hybrid attack. But still it's under pressure level, in pressure level before acting. I mean by these attacks, Russians have several aims. First, they study how the interagency decisions are made on the level of NATO, how they act. For example, after the incidents of drones interrupting incursions on the airports of European Union, there was the consultancy by the fourth article of Washington Treaty. And another case of such consultancies was after Russian jet incurred in the territory of Estonia, in the air territory of Estonia. So it is two cases on a month when fourth article of the Washington Treaty was introduced.
Yeah.
Consultation under this article was introduced. In such way, Russians try to see how the interagency cooperation is managed. It's first, and the second, of course, they try to understand how the air defenses act. And this is also the problem of attribution, because no government in European Union, they have not blamed the Russians. They say some unknown drones were seen near the airports, near the military base, but this is the first of all, this is the question of attribution. To say that this country, we blame this country, and this country is waging hybrid war on our territory, are conducting hybrid attacks on our infrastructure, and we already have financial losses. This is very important now. Why? Because even the war in Ukraine, the kinetic dimension of which began in 2014 with occupation of Crimea and Donbass. Before this, there was a huge period of hybrid war in Ukraine. In 2012, there was economic blockade of all imports of Ukrainian goods to Russia. And we had huge economic losses in this period. This is the economic blockade of Ukraine, and this was also the signs of hybrid attacks. So the matter of attribution is very, very important. Another matter is that now is the question of how to act, because, for example, in Romania, I have experience of communicating with some high-level NATO generals, and they said that, sorry, we do not have martial law in our country, so our armed forces, they are prohibited to act. So armed forces and militia, they do not have possibility to protect their country because there is no wartime. Some processes begin in Danish government. I know that they begin to prepare the laws, the draft laws to give right to militia into armed forces to act. Also, the similar processes begin in German government, but still, it is the question of acting, of decision to act, of resolution to act, and of perceiving the war, because it is fourth year of full-scale war, not only in Ukraine, but already in Europe. And on the fourth year of war in Europe, not only the governments have no possibilities to act, but even the armed forces have no multi-layered defense, multinational defense capabilities, no cost-effective means to protect their infrastructure. I have a question. Do they really expect that the war will, full-scale war will begin in 2030s, and the Russian will wait when they will be prepared on the level of European Union? So sorry, wait, do not attack us, because we have our rearmament program till 2030, and after this year we will be ready to protect ourselves, and please attack us after this year. So this is a very, very decisive moment, and very decisive steps are needed now on the level of legislation and on the level of defense.
Absolutely. Your last remarks seem to have created a bit of a flurry of questions. Unfortunately, we are running very short on time. But if I was to combine all the questions, because I think they are hinting at two things. So this would be perhaps our concluding question to you, Oksana. In a nutshell, what is, and this again is from the questions, what is Russia's endgame, and what sort of a decisive, game-changing step, if you were to pick one, should NATO / the West should take to end the war? I know it's a bit provocative,
Yeah.
but these we had, and let me also tell that these were from Amina, from Daria, Brenda, and Sandra. So thank you so much for your questions, guys. Like I said, Oksana, I had to combine them as much as I could because we are short of time. But what's your take on those two final points, if you could, please?
So the end game of Russians were proclaimed by the Russian President Putin on the 2006 Munich Security Conference, when he said that in his perception, the highest catastrophe of the 20th century was the dissolution of Soviet Union. So now what is going on? Russians try to renovate the Russian Empire in the form of Soviet Union, to renovate Soviet Union, and it means that after occupying Ukraine, if they succeed to do this, they will not stop, and they will try to occupy post-Soviet states in the Baltic. First of all, it is Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, with the threat of Poland, and then they will try to destruct the NATO presence in Europe. Of course, they will try it in an asymmetric way. It means that if for now they will have no possibility to face NATO in direct way, in military way, they will try to reintegrate North Atlantic institution in Europe by asymmetric means. It means by occupying its members, like I have already said, Estonia, Baltic NATO member states. It's first. The second one is that what should be done, answering your question. Of course, what should be done at first of all, perceive this war not only like the war somewhere in Ukraine, in state which is not now in European Union, but to perceive this war as the war in the Europe. And if Ukraine will fall, then Russia will not stop, and this war will be already on the territory of European Union, and it will start with the Baltic countries. And it's better to act now, to support Ukraine and to act together in the fight with aggressor, to stop it on the line where it is now.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much, Oksana. Unfortunately, this is all the time we have, but we are grateful that you were able to join us this morning and share these insights with us. This is definitely an important issue that will remain on top of the security agendas in Europe, but also beyond. And it's definitely something that we need to be paying very, very close attention to. So perhaps we would like to take this opportunity to say a huge thanks to you, but also to hint that we may need you again later on in the coming months as to update us on the situation. That would be fantastic. So on that note, once again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Thank you, and the members of the audience, thanks for watching us this morning, and those of you who contributed to the discussion with your questions. Do make sure to follow us on social media. We are, of course, on Facebook, on X, and also on Instagram, and you can also access all this session, but also all the previous sessions on our website as well. So thank you, and we look forward to seeing you at our next installment in the coming weeks. That's all from us. All the best.
All the best. Thank you for inviting me. And